Welcome back to the channel. I am working on this 06 LT-Z400 today. This was a project that kind of fell into my lap. The original owner wants to get rid of it, and it's been sitting since about 2015. So it was running fine till the radiator decided to give out. The radiator gave out, and I think a lot of this corrosion is either from the coolant leaking through the water pump gasket, or it's coming from when the radiator was leaking and shooting back. But either way, I got a gasket for that. I got a radiator and fan, a spark plug, and we'll be doing an oil change, throwing some fuel in it, and hoping it starts right up. He says that the carb was empty, so there shouldn't be any gas plugging up the jets. But worst case scenario, I'll have to take that apart and clean them out. Either way, let's get started on this maintenance. Well, this thing was full of surprises. I finally got the radiator in. That was quite a hassle for sure. A few hiccups along the way. But radiator and silicone hoses are in. Coolant's topped off. Engine oil's changed. The air filter is replaced, as well as the battery. And I'm hoping this thing fires right up. It's pretty crazy to see the old filter just completely disintegrated. But right now we will spray some starter fluid, just since it's carb, you know, it's not fuel injected, so we'll spray some starter fluid in it and see if it fires up. I thought I was gonna get lucky and not have to rebuild the carb on this, but after I rode up and down the block, the minute I got back into the driveway, it just died. Wouldn't start. I tapped the float bowl with the screwdriver to try to free it up. Maybe it ran out of gas or something, but it got started, and when I gave it gas, it just sputtered out. So very odd that it drove fine up and down the street and I came back. So my only theory is that we got some sort of debris knocked out and clogged up a jet, and it was sitting for a long time, so I can only imagine that it's pretty bad in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it apart, rebuild the carb. I've got a rebuild kit here, and hopefully, if all goes well, this thing will be ready to wash up and sell it. Let's get to it. Alright, so this is my first one, so obviously it's going to be a little learning curve taking it apart, but check this out. So I got it all pulled out from its little crevice inside the frame, and I turned it upside down, and look at this gunk that fell out of the fuel line. So this is going to be either a breather hose or something, but whatever fuel went from the bottom of the bowl out is just disgusting. So let's clean this up. Let's see if we can get some more out. Look at that. Wow. And that's probably all up in the jets too. And you can see in the port what it was looking like. So this should get it dialed in. I don't see why not. It can't really be much else. Got it back together. What I ended up doing was I used some of the parts from the new kit and I cleaned the old ones. When it comes to jets, I don't really want to change them if I don't have to. So all these jets, they were the same number, but they looked fine. The original ones are probably better quality anyways. So I cleaned it all out. This guy right here, I don't even know what you call it, but it is, so you see this fuel port? So that's where the gas comes in from the tank, and this filter faces up, and then that drops the fuel into the bowl. So this filter was full of crud, and you can't really see it now, but it's done. So I swapped that out with the new one. I changed this plunge needle with the new one as well, just so we don't really know the condition of that rubber boot. Didn't mess with the float bowl height settings. I didn't mess with any of the dials on the carburetor. All I'm doing is cleaning out everything that got, you know, gunked up from sitting. But, you know, ran when parked, it was perfectly fine. When I rode it up and down the street, it was perfectly fine. So that's why I'm not messing with any of the dials. You got to be a real carb guru to know what you're doing when you're setting it up from a baseline after messing with them. So I don't do it anymore. I did it on an edger one time, and luckily there's only 2 needles, so I was able to figure it out. But if I don't have to, I'm not going to go that far on this carb. We're just going to get a new fuel hose, because that one from the tank, it's got a little line on it, so it's leaking, and then we'll be able to fire it up. Okay, I made a quick run to the auto parts store for 2 reasons. One, I don't know why I didn't look before, but check this out. There's sand all over the inside of this gas tank. That means that stuff was getting down through the fuel petcock into the carb, and that little filter that was all clogged up. So I'm going to take this out. You can see all that stuff deep inside too. It was all in there. So I'm going to take off the tank. We're going to flush it with some fresh gas, dump it out, and then put it back together and fire it up. And as long as it fires up and it doesn't need a choke and I could rev it out and ride it around, this thing's done. In my book, it's ready to go. Alright guys, check this out. I was flushing the tank and I heard a bunch of rattling and that came out of it. All that gunk is basically what I just figured out now is this Petcock completely disintegrated. The little plastic tubes and the little pre-filters are all gone, and that's exactly why that little filter inside the carb got clogged up, because there was absolutely nothing filtering this gas going through this. So I actually ordered one for the white LT-Z250 that is a basically vacuum Petcock delete. So this one runs off vacuum. It's not really popular among a lot of the quad guys. I don't know why OEMs do it, but it's you can't shut it off. You can't turn this off so you can run the motor and empty the bowl in the carb and store it for a long time. So we're gonna be doing the delete. I bought that vacuum delete Petcock for the white one. I'm gonna use it on this one today and order up another one. But basically, it will completely eliminate this vacuum port. We'll plug the port on the carb and then we'll put a new fuel line in. I still need to get the sand out of that gas tank. I got a spark plug and then reassembly time. So here's the new one. So you can see it says off, reserve, and on, just like it should. You use a 3/16 cap. You cap the port on the carburetor that used to have this hose that would go from the carb to the Petcock. So when you turn on the motor, it pulls the vacuum and then it starts pulling gas into the carb. But now you'll just have an on-off normal one with a new line and call it a day. So this will be perfect for what we're trying to do here. All right, well that wraps it up, man. That's pretty much everything I can do here. New Petcock, cleaned out the fuel tank, put new fuel in it, plugged up the vacuum port on the carb, partially serviced the carb. I wouldn't call that a rebuild. I changed the flow bowl gasket, the needle, and that filter jet that was all clogged up with the crud, and put everything back. So this thing should fire up. Spray a little bit of starting fluid just to help it out. Throttle is just a little sticky, so I'll have to figure out what's going on there. Might need to disassemble it or check the routing, but let's see. I think it was just because everything got all cleaned up and the carb cleaner probably dried it out, or maybe the brake cleaner is probably the culprit, but it's good now. I just moved the cable around while I was giving it throttle with the engine off, of course, and everything freed up. So nice and responsive the way it should. Alright friends, thanks for watching. I'll be servicing the white one next, essentially doing the same exact thing, but on a 250, not a 400.